Nah, nah. Wait, because I have to tell you something before this reading goes anywhere. Something I have literally never shared publicly before, and I am sharing it today. Because it fits what is coming through for you so perfectly that I would be doing you wrong if I kept it to myself. When I was 19 years old, I entered a local spoken word competition. Small venue, maybe 80 people in the audience. And I signed up impulsively, which, if you know me at all, is extremely on brand, and then spent the 3 days before completely convincing myself I was going to embarrass myself in front of everyone I knew. Here is the context. There was a girl in that competition named Priya. Priya had been doing spoken word since she was 14. Priya had won this same competition the previous 2 years. Priya had a following. Priya had a vocal coach. Priya practiced in front of a mirror and kept a performance journal, and I genuinely do not think she had ever lost anything in her life. And then there was me. No training. One crumpled piece of paper I had written the poem on at 2 in the morning 3 nights before. Shoes that were slightly too tight. Heart going absolutely haywire. I remember standing backstage and overhearing two people talking, and one of them said, gesturing toward the sign-up sheet, "Who even is she?" And the other one shrugged and said she goes after Priya, so good luck to her. I did not win that competition, but I placed second. And Priya, who had won it twice before, Priya, who was supposed to win it again, Priya, whose name everyone already knew, she placed third. And when they announced the results, I heard the actual audible sound of people being shocked. Not just surprised, shocked. The kind of silence that falls when something happens that nobody had factored into their calculations. I thought about that silence for years afterward. What it felt like to be the person nobody saw coming. And what I eventually understood is that being unseen is only a disadvantage until the moment it becomes your greatest weapon. Because the person nobody expects to win has nothing to perform and everything to gain. They just show up. They just do the thing, without the weight of expectation pressing down on them from every direction. And sometimes that freedom, that beautiful, terrifying freedom of having nothing to prove, because nobody is watching closely enough to even form an expectation, is exactly what creates the space for something extraordinary to happen. That is this reading. That is you. You are the last person they expected to win. And here you are, leaving them absolutely speechless. Let us get into what the cards are saying, because Spirit has been talking since before I sat down. Card 1, the fool you moved without asking their permission, A and D, that broke everything, nah wait. The fool comes out first, and I need you to understand why this card in this position is the most perfectly chosen first card Spirit could have pulled for this reading. Because the fool is the wild card. The unexpected one. The one who steps off the cliff, not because they are reckless and not because they are stupid, but because something in them trusts the jump in a way that cannot be argued with logically. And here is what people who underestimate the fool always miss. They see the cliff and they see the step, and they think that person does not know what they are doing. They think the courage is ignorance. They think the freedom is naivety. But the fool is not ignorant. The fool simply operates from a different set of instructions than the people watching. While everyone else is calculating risk and weighing probability and deciding whether the jump makes sense on paper, the fool has already jumped. And that jump, that decision to move without waiting for consensus, is exactly what leaves the audience standing at the edge with their mouths open. Real talk example for this card. Picture a woman named Kezia. Kezia worked in a corporate environment for 6 years. She was good at her job, quiet, reliable, did not make waves. And for 6 years, the people around her, her manager, certain colleagues, even some people she considered friends, had a very settled understanding of who Kezia was. Someone solid, someone dependable, someone who would be exactly where they left her whenever they needed her. And then Kezia quit. No dramatic announcement, no lengthy explanation. She handed in her notice on a Tuesday, worked her final 2 weeks professionally and warmly, and walked out. And she had already been building something on the side for 18 months that nobody in that office knew about because she had never needed their input on it. And within the year, that thing she had been building quietly, while everyone thought she was just being reliable and solid in her lane, it took off. Publicly, visibly, in a way that her former colleagues could not avoid seeing. The silence that followed. The what just happened energy. The scramble to understand how someone they had fully filed away under no threat could be sitting somewhere else now winning that is your fool card. You moved. You took the step. You did not ask whether the timing was right, or whether the people watching approved, or whether the jump made sense by their calculations. And the jump is working, and they are standing at the edge of the cliff you left absolutely gobsmacked. Because nobody who underestimates someone expects to watch them fly. Spirit is saying this about the fool in your reading specifically. The fact that you were not expected to win is the reason you were free to win. The absence of their expectation removed the pressure that would have weighed you down. You got to just be exactly who you are with zero performance tax. And exactly who you are turned out to be extraordinary. They just did not know to look. Card 2 5 of Pentacles reversed what they thought was going to break. You built you oop. 5 of Pentacles reversed lands second, and I felt this one before I even turned it over. Because this card in reverse after the Fool is Spirit telling me something very specific about your backstory. About what happened before the winning. About what this person or these people watched you go through and privately decided was going to keep you down. Here is the thing about the 5 of Pentacles upright. It is someone in the cold, outside the window looking in lack, in difficulty, in a season that is genuinely hard. And the people who have watched you, the ones this reading is about, the ones who are now speechless, they saw you in that season. They saw the difficulty. They registered it in their calculations of who you were and what you were likely to become. And some of them not with cruelty necessarily, but with the casual dismissiveness of people who make quick assessments, decided that what they were seeing was your ceiling, that the difficulty was where you lived, that the outside the window position was permanent. The reversal of this card is the turnaround they did not budget for. It is someone who was in the cold walking inside, not being let in, walking in, on their own terms, through a door they found or built themselves, while the people who had already written them off were looking elsewhere. Here is the example that makes this real. There is a guy, I am going to call him Jerome, and Jerome went through a stretch in his mid-20s that by any external measure looked rough. Lost a job he had worked hard for. Went through a breakup that hit him harder than he let anyone see. Had to move back somewhere he had sworn he was done with. And the people in his world at that time, former colleagues. A couple of people from his social circle, even 1 or 2 family members looked at that stretch and formed a quiet conclusion. Poor Jerome. He had his shot and it did not work out. Except Jerome used that stretch. Every single day of it. While people were forming their quiet conclusions, he was reading, building skills, working on himself in the way that only becomes possible when external noise goes quiet and you are left alone with what actually matters. He was not performing recovery. He was actually recovering, building something new from the inside out. And 2 years later, when the reversal happened, when Jerome emerged from that period into something undeniable, the people who had privately written their conclusions had to sit with the experience of being completely wrong. That is your 5 of Pentacles reversed. The season that looked like a setback was your construction phase. What they watched and assessed as evidence of your limitations was actually you laying a foundation. And they had no idea. Because people who underestimate you stop watching closely the moment they think they have figured you out. And that is when you did the most important work of your life. In the space of their inattention. Spirit is being really pointed about this right now. That difficult period, whatever it was, whatever it looked like from the outside, it did not break you. It reversed into fuel, into clarity, into the exact kind of pressure that turns ordinary carbon into something worth a great deal more. And the people who thought the difficulty was your destination have now been forced to watch you use it as a launching pad. Card 3, the chariot you got yourself together, Andy, drove straight past them. Woo. The chariot. In a reading about winning when nobody expected it, Spirit is showing out today. The chariot is one of those cards that does not ask for permission, does not pause to check the GPS coordinates against what everyone around it approved. It moves with intention, with will, with the specific, focused energy of someone who has decided on a direction and is not available for detours. And what the chariot is telling me about your story is that at some point, maybe after the Five of Pentacles season, maybe during it, maybe in a specific moment of clarity that arrived without warning, you made a decision. A real one. Not the kind of decision you tell people about so they can validate it. The quiet, internal kind. The kind you make by yourself at an hour when nobody else is awake. And that decision reorganized everything. The direction became clear. The energy that had been scattered across 100 directions of worry and explanation and trying to get certain people to understand you, all of it consolidated. And you started moving. Example for the chariot that I think is going to land very specifically for some of you. Picture a woman named Fatima. Fatima had spent years in a creative field being told indirectly, through the way opportunities were distributed and the way rooms were organized, that she was solid, but not spectacular. That her work was good, but not the kind of good that got talked about. And Fatima had internalized some of that. Not completely, but enough that her own energy was slightly divided between creating and monitoring whether the creation was being received the way she needed it to be received. And then something snapped. Not dramatically, just quietly, completely, finally, she stopped monitoring. She stopped calibrating. She made a decision that felt almost physical, like physically turning to face a new direction, and she started creating purely from the inside out, with absolutely no regard for the audience that had been quietly deciding she was solid, but not spectacular. The work that came out of that shift was different. Everyone could feel it even before they could articulate why. And the people who had spent years deciding where she ranked in their internal hierarchy suddenly found their hierarchy disrupted in a way they were not prepared for. Because the chariot does not ask to be reconsidered. It just moves. And the dust it kicks up in passing lands on the people who thought they were watching something unremarkable. Your chariot is saying, you found your direction. You stopped splitting your energy between moving forward and managing backward. And the forward movement purely focused. No more energy leaking out in the direction of people who were not going to give you what you deserved anyway, became unstoppable in a way that has genuinely caught people off guard. Card 4, Page of Wands, the version of you they are seeing now was not in their script, ha. Ha ha ha. Page of Wands shows up fourth, and this card is so specific right now. Because the Page of Wands is new, enthusiastic, crackling with creative energy, unbothered by the weight of what has come before. A version of someone that looks almost unrecognizable compared to the version that was playing a more cautious game. And what Spirit is showing me here is that the version of you that is currently leaving certain people speechless and shaking is a version they genuinely did not anticipate. They had their script for you. A clear picture of what role you were supposed to play, how your story was supposed to go, what your ceiling was, what chapter you were supposed to be stuck in right now. And then you showed up as the Page of Wands, and their script became instantly irrelevant because you are not in the scene they wrote for you. You are in a completely different scene entirely. One they did not write. One they would not have cast you in. And you are absolutely thriving in it. Real example for this card. There is a guy named Solomon. And Solomon had a best friend from college, someone he had known for 8 years. Someone who loved him in that comfortable way, where loving someone and underestimating them exist in the same space without either person noticing. And this friend, someone who had built a private ranking system in his head, where Solomon was beloved, but not the highest ranked, had a whole internal story about where Solomon was and where he was going. And then Solomon started doing something new. A project nobody knew about. Something creative and slightly unexpected given what everyone knew of him. And it started gaining traction in public. Real traction. The kind that shows up in places where people pay attention. And Solomon's friend, sitting with his private ranking system, had to watch the ranking he had assigned Solomon become wildly, publicly, undeniably inaccurate. The Page of Wands is the new version. The unexpected creative expansion. The chapter of you that was not in anyone's projected outline for your life. And the people watching are speechless, not just because you won, but because they did not even know this version of you existed. They thought they had you fully cataloged. The Page of Wands is the proof that they did not even know what they were looking at. Card 5, 10 of Wands reversed. You put down what was slowing you down, A and D. That is when everything changed. 10 of Wands reversed. Right here in this position. This is spirit going in. The 10 of Wands upright is someone carrying an enormous bundle of sticks. Overloaded, exhausted, moving forward, but barely. Because everything they are carrying is weighing them down so heavily that the forward motion costs them almost everything they have just to maintain it. And the reversal is the moment they put the bundle down. Now, here's what I want to be specific about for your reading. Because in the context of winning when nobody expected it, the 10 of Wands reversed is asking a very particular question. What were you carrying that was not yours to carry? Because what I am picking up for the person this reading is for is that some significant portion of your energy for a long time was going toward things and people that were not contributing to your growth. Relationships you were maintaining out of loyalty to an old version of yourself rather than genuine reciprocity. Expectations you were trying to meet that came from other people's visions for your life rather than your own. Guilt about moving forward that was being quietly installed by people who benefited from you staying still. Example for this reversal that is going to hit. Picture a woman named Neka. And Neka had a friend group she had been part of for years. And within that group, there was an unspoken understanding, not malicious, just real, that certain people were the main characters. And Neka was supportive cast. And Neka had spent years showing up for the main characters, celebrating them, making space for their dreams and their crises and their visibility, while quietly setting her own on a back shelf, because that was the group's gravitational arrangement. And then Neka started pulling back from the arrangement, not dramatically, not with an announcement, just quietly redirecting the energy she had been pouring into other people's stories back into her own. And the shift in her output was immediate, because she had been walking around for years with a bundle of sticks that were not her sticks. And when she put them down, she was suddenly moving at a pace that shocked even her. The people from that group watched Neka's life change and had a complicated experience of being happy for her and also being asked to reckon with the fact that their gravitational arrangement had been costing her something real. Your 10 of Wands reversed is about that put down, what you stopped carrying, and how much faster you moved the moment your hands were free. The people who expected you to stay weighted down are now watching you run. Card 6, the Sun, the winning is visible, A and D, there's nowhere to hide from it, nah, the Sun, the actual Sun card. In the 6th position of a reading about people being left speechless by your win. Spirit said, let us not be subtle today. The Sun is not a card that allows for alternative interpretation in its most basic message. It is visibility. It is radiance. It is success that exists in full daylight where everyone can see it, where there is no shadow to stand in, where the achievement is undeniable not because you are announcing it, but because it is simply visible in the way that the sun is visible. You do not argue with the sun. You do not negotiate with the sun about whether it is bright. You just deal with the fact that it is there. And in your reading, the sun is saying that what you have achieved, what you have become, what you have built in the season that certain people were busy not watching closely enough, it has come into the light. Publicly, specifically, in a form that the people who underestimated you cannot avoid encountering in their regular life. Example, there's a man named Patrick, and Patrick had an ex, and his ex had a particular opinion of him that she had shared with their mutual social circle in the period after things ended between them. The opinion was not flattering. It was the specific kind of narrative that someone tells when they need to make sense of a situation in a way that keeps them as the main character. And the mutual social circle had absorbed that narrative to varying degrees. And Patrick was aware of it, and it sat with him in the uncomfortable way that unfair narratives do. Patrick did not fight the narrative. He did not recruit people to counter it. He just put his head down and built something. Quietly, seriously, with real focus and real strategy. And then the sun came out. An achievement, a recognition, a visible, undeniable result of what Patrick had been building it landed in a public way. In a way the mutual social circle could see. In a way his ex could see. And the narrative she had been telling could not survive contact with the actual visible reality of what Patrick had become. She went silent. The mutual circle updated their assessments. And Patrick did not have to say a single word in his own defense, because the sun does not need a defense. It is just bright. It is just there. And that is what your winning is right now. Just there. Just visible. Just undeniable. And the speechlessness is the natural response of people encountering sun after they built their whole understanding of you in the dark. Card 7 Judgment, they have been called to account for underestimating you, and the final card, Judgment. And when I turned this card over, I actually sat back for a second, because Judgment as the closing card of a reading about unexpected winning is Spirit putting a full stop at the end of a very clear sentence. Judgment is the card of reckoning, of being called to face something true, of the moment when what has been buried or avoided or not fully examined rises to the surface and demands to be looked at directly. And in your reading, Judgment is not for you. It is for the people who underestimated you. It is the card of their internal reckoning with what they assumed about you and what the reality of your winning is now requiring them to confront. Let me be specific about what that reckoning looks like in practice, because judgment is often described in big cosmic terms, and I want to bring it down to the very real, very uncomfortable, very human experience of being wrong about someone, in a way you cannot now avoid acknowledging. Picture a mentor. Not a bad person, someone who genuinely thought they were being helpful, who consistently subtly communicated to someone they were mentoring that she should set her sights within a certain range, that the bigger vision she kept describing was ambitious, in a way that outpaced what was realistic for her specifically. This mentor was working from an assessment, an honest assessment that they believed was accurate, and they communicated it with the confidence of someone who has seen enough to know the difference between genuine potential and inflated expectation. And then the person they were mentoring did the thing they had been told was a stretch. Not just did it in a way that exceeded even the most optimistic interpretation of what it would mean to do it. And the mentor had to sit with that, had to look at the gap between what they had assessed and what had actually happened. And that sitting, that specific uncomfortable sitting with the evidence of their own miscalculation is judgment. It is not punishment. Spirit is not punishing these people for underestimating you. What judgment does is simply call things to account. It asks people to look at what they assumed and measure it against what is true. And the discomfort of that measuring, the speechlessness, the shaking, is the natural human response to having your assessment of reality corrected in an undeniable and public way. Your judgment card is saying, these people are in their reckoning right now. They are sitting with what they thought they knew about you and what the evidence of your win is requiring them to reconsider. And that reconsideration is not comfortable for them. But it is real, and it is happening. And nothing about your win needs to be adjusted to accommodate their comfort level while they reckon with it. What Spirit wants you to carry out of this few final things before this closes, and I am not rushing past any of them. First, The winning is not over. This is not the peak. What Spirit is showing me is that what certain people are currently being left speechless by is actually just the beginning of what is building for you. The Fool jumped, and the sun is shining, and the chariot is still moving. You are not at the top of this arc. You are somewhere in the early middle of it. And the people who are already speechless have not seen anything yet. Second, do not go back to explain yourself to the people who are shaking. There will be a temptation because you are human, and because being misunderstood costs something real, to now use your win as an opportunity to revisit old narratives, to point, to make sure certain people understand what they missed and why they were wrong. Do not do it. The sun does not explain itself. Your judgment card is already doing the work of calling things to account. Your job is just to keep moving in the chariot. Let the results continue to speak. They are doing it far more effectively than any explanation you could give. Third, there are people in your life right now who saw you clearly before the win, who were not surprised, who had already assessed you accurately and were simply waiting for the rest of the world to catch up. Pull those people close. Not because you need a team of validators, you have clearly demonstrated you do not need external validation to move, but because people who see you accurately are rare, and they deserve to be treated as the precious resource they are. Fourth and final, I want you to remember something about being the last person they expected to win. Because this is the piece that matters most, and it is the piece I remember every time I think about that night at the spoken word competition and the silence after the results were announced. Being the last person they expected is not a disadvantage you overcame. It was the specific and unrepeatable freedom that made the winning possible in the form it took. Another person, someone they were watching closely, someone they had already mapped out a trajectory for, could not have won the same way. Could not have walked in with that specific quality of have nothing to lose energy that you carried. Could not have simply showed up and done the thing without the weight of everyone's expectations pressing on every move. You won the way you won because you were the last person they expected. That is not a footnote to the story. That is the whole story. Keep going. Keep building. Keep being exactly the person they did not see coming. Leave something in the comments if this landed. Tell me what card hit the hardest. Subscribe for the next reading, and share this with the person in your life who is the last person anyone expects to win, because they need to know that is their superpower, not their setback.